I was signing my son's arrest warrant when I realized he never knew who I really was. My name is Tom Anderson, and 3 months ago, my heart nearly killed me. While I was fighting for my life in cardiac ICU, my only son was stealing it. He sold my $2.3 million beach house, my vintage car collection worth $890,000, and had the audacity to forge my signature on documents that would have made him rich and left me homeless. But Brandon made one fatal mistake. He had no idea that Wilson Coastal Properties, the real estate agency handling his brilliant sales, belonged to me. What happened next at his engagement party in front of 200 people destroyed more than just his reputation. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I simply made 3 phone calls that changed everything. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. But to understand why my son thought he could steal my life's work, I need to take you back to the day my heart stopped beating. January 15th, 2024, 6:23 a.m. I was pouring my morning coffee when the chest pain hit like a freight train. The next thing I remember was waking up in Mount Sinai Medical Center, cardiac ICU, bed 7. Tubes everywhere, heart monitor beeping. Brandon sitting beside me, tears in his eyes. "Dad, thank God you're awake," he said. "The doctors weren't sure you'd make it." Dr. Samuel Brooks, my cardiologist, explained I'd suffered a massive heart attack, triple bypass surgery, 2 weeks minimum recovery, maybe longer. "Mr. Anderson," Dr. Brooks said, "you're lucky to be alive. But I need you to understand, no stress, no business decisions, complete rest. Your heart can't handle any additional strain right now." Brandon nodded seriously. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll handle everything while you recover. Just focus on getting better." I should have paid attention to how quickly he volunteered. For 13 days, I drifted in and out of consciousness. Morphine for the pain, heart medications that made me foggy. Brandon visited daily, always with updates about taking care of things at home. "The bills are handled, Dad. Property taxes paid. Don't worry about anything." But here's what Brandon didn't know, and what would destroy him later. Dr. Brooks administered a mental competency test on January 20th, right after my surgery. Standard procedure for patients my age. I scored 29 out of 30. Perfect cognitive function despite the medication. The medical records clearly showed I was mentally sharp throughout my entire hospital stay. This detail would become crucial evidence later. On January 28th, I was finally discharged. Brandon drove me home in his BMW, not my usual pickup truck. I was too weak to question it. "Where's my truck, son?" "In the shop, Dad. Don't worry about it." When we pulled into my driveway, I noticed something wrong immediately. My garage was empty. No 1967 Mustang Shelby GT 500, no 1963 Corvette split window, no 1969 Camaro SS. "Brandon, where are my cars?" He helped me out of his BMW, avoiding eye contact. "Dad, you were really sick. I had to make some tough decisions. The insurance was expensive, and you weren't driving them anyway." "You sold my cars? Dad, please." "You need to rest. We'll talk about this later." But I was already walking toward the beach. Where my house should have been overlooking the Atlantic, there was a sold sign. Wilson Coastal Properties. The same agency Brandon claimed had given him such a great deal on the car sales. My $2.3 million beach house? Gone. "Brandon." My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. Not from the heart medication. From rage. "Dad, listen." "You were dying. The medical bills were going to be enormous. I had to liquidate some assets to protect your financial future." "Protect my financial future? By selling my home?" "It's just real estate, Dad. You taught me that yourself. It's all about cash flow, right? I put everything into high-yield investments. You'll thank me later." I stared at my son, this 28-year-old investment banker who made $125,000 a year, who lived in a $3,000 a month apartment, who drove a leased BMW, who was about to inherit everything I'd built. "Show me the paperwork, Brandon." "Dad, you're getting worked up. Your heart." "Show me the paperwork." He pulled out a manila folder. Power of attorney documents, my signature on every page, except I'd never signed them. The handwriting was close, very close, but I'd been signing legal documents for 30 years. I knew my own signature. Brandon had forged every single one. When did I sign these, son? January 22nd. You were lucid that morning, remember? Right before your second procedure. January 22nd. The day I was unconscious for 18 hours straight. The medical records would prove that. Brandon thought he was stealing from a dying old man. He had no idea he'd just declared war on the most powerful real estate mogul in the Outer Banks, and he was about to find out exactly who his father really was. I didn't sleep that first night home. Instead, I sat in my kitchen, the only room Brandon hadn't touched, and calculated exactly what I was facing. The beach house, $2.3 million. 4-bedroom oceanfront property I'd built myself in 1987. Every board, every nail. My wife Sarah and I had our first dance on that deck. She'd died 3 years ago in that living room, holding my hand. The car collection, $890,000. 30 years of careful restoration. The Shelby GT 500 was Sarah's favorite. She used to make me take her for drives down Highway 12 every Sunday after church. Combined theft, $3.19 million. More than most people see in a lifetime. But the money wasn't the real problem. If I stayed silent, Brandon would think elder abuse was acceptable. He'd already proven he'd forged documents, lie to medical professionals, and steal from his dying father. What would he do to the next vulnerable senior citizen who crossed his path? Worse, other family members were watching. My nephew Jake, my brother-in-law Paul. If Brandon got away with this, it would send a message. Tom Anderson was weak, finished, fair game. But here's what made my blood run cold. I pulled out Sarah's final letter, the one she'd written before the cancer took her. I'd kept it in my safe, along with my will and business documents. Tom, she'd written, I know you'll want to give Brandon everything, but make him earn it. Make him prove he understands the value of what you've built. Don't let him become the kind of man who takes without giving back. Sarah had seen something in Brandon that I'd missed, or maybe I'd chosen not to see it. The next morning, I called my estate attorney, Margaret Wilson. We'd been business partners for 20 years. She'd helped me build Wilson Coastal Properties from a single rental house into a $34.2 million empire. Tom, thank God you're alive. Brandon said you were touch and go for weeks. Margaret, I need you to run some numbers for me. Quietly. Of course. What do you need? I want to know exactly how much Brandon has cost me. And I want to know if Wilson Coastal Properties handled any transactions while I was in the hospital. 3 hours later, Margaret called back. Her voice was tight. Tom, we need to talk. In person. Now. When she arrived at my kitchen table, she brought a stack of documents 6 inches thick. Brandon came to our office on January 22nd, she said. Claimed he had power of attorney. Wanted to liquidate your non-performing assets to pay medical bills. Did you verify the documents? Our junior associate handled it. Rebecca Martinez. She's new, only 6 months with the firm. Brandon was very convincing. Said you were unconscious, massive debt from surgery. Insurance wouldn't cover everything. Margaret spread out the papers. Sales contracts, transfer documents, commission statements. Tom, Wilson Coastal Properties handled both sales, the house and the cars. Brandon specifically requested our agency. How much commission did we make? 6% on the real estate, $138,000, plus a flat $15,000 finder's fee for the car collection, total $153,000. I started laughing, actually laughing. Margaret, do you understand what this means? That Brandon is an idiot? It means my son just stole from me using my own company. He forged power of attorney documents to sell my property through my own real estate agency. He literally paid me to help him commit fraud against me. Margaret's eyes widened. Oh my God, Tom, this is perfect. Brandon has no idea I own Wilson Coastal Properties. He thinks it's just some random agency that gave him a good deal. We spent the next 2 hours going through every detail. The forged signatures, the medical timeline proving I was unconscious when I supposedly signed the documents. The fact that Brandon had specifically chosen my company without knowing it was mine. Margaret, here's what I need you to do. I want you to document everything. Every phone call, every meeting, every lie Brandon told your staff. And I want you to pull the security camera footage from January 22nd. We have him on camera? Front desk, conference room, parking lot, everything. Tom, what are you planning? I looked at Sarah's letter again. I'm going to give Brandon exactly what he's earned. But first, I need to wait for the right moment. When will that be? His engagement party is March 3rd, Ocean View Country Club, 200 guests. Brandon specifically invited me to show everyone how well I'm recovering. Margaret understood immediately. You're going to expose him publicly. I'm going to let him expose himself. All I have to do is ask the right questions in front of the right people. And if he denies everything? I pulled out my phone and showed her the voice recording app. I've been recording every conversation since I got home. Brandon has confessed to everything at least 6 times. He just doesn't realize it yet. The stakes were clear now. This wasn't just about money. This was about justice. February 3rd. Brandon came over for what he called our financial planning meeting. He brought a laptop, a stack of investment reports, and the condescending smile he'd been perfecting since college. Dad, I know you're upset about the house and cars, but let me show you the numbers. He opened his laptop on my kitchen table. Spreadsheets everywhere. Colorful charts. The kind of presentation he probably used to impress clients at his investment firm. See this? I liquidated $3.19 million in depreciating assets. Depreciating assets? Real estate is flat in the Outer Banks, Dad. Has been for 2 years. And classic cars? Total money pit. Insurance, maintenance, storage costs. I let him talk. I wanted every word recorded. But look at this. He clicked to another screen. I moved everything into emerging market funds. Conservative estimate? 12% annual return. That's $382,800 per year in passive income. Where's the money now, Brandon? Safe. Diversified portfolio. I opened accounts in your name, obviously. Wells Fargo Private Banking. They specialize in high net worth recovery situations. Show me the statements. Dad, you don't understand modern investing. It's all digital now. Real-time analytics, algorithmic trading. Your old-school real estate approach is dead. That's when I knew he was lying. Brandon was talking like someone who'd watched too many YouTube videos about day trading. He'd never mentioned algorithmic trading in his life. Brandon, I want to see my money. Dad, please. Trust me, I'm a professional. You're a loan officer at a regional bank. I'm an investment banker. You process car loans and small business applications. His face flushed. The mask was slipping. Dad, I have a finance degree. I understand markets. You buy old houses and rent them out. That's not investing, that's being a landlord. There it was. The disrespect I'd been waiting for. Brandon, what exactly do you think I do for work? You're retired, Dad. You collect rent checks and complain about tenants. And before I retired? Construction, right? You built houses. I almost felt sorry for him. My own son had no idea who I was. How do you think I could afford a $2.3 million beach house on a construction worker's salary? Dad, you inherited Grandpa's money. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. My father died broke in 1983. But Brandon had created an entire fantasy about my success. In his mind, I was just a lucky old man who'd inherited wealth and stumbled into real estate. Brandon, show me the bank statements. Dad, you're getting worked up again. Remember what Dr. Brooks said about stress. I'm not stressed. I'm curious. Show me where my $3.19 million is invested. He closed the laptop. I'll email you the reports. Let's talk about your recovery instead. Open the laptop, Brandon. Dad? Open it. Fine. He clicked back to the spreadsheets, but I was watching his hands, nervous, trembling slightly. Brandon, these are templates, stock photos from an investment website. What? Look at the date stamp. These screenshots are from January 15th, the day I had my heart attack, before you sold anything. His face went white. Dad, these are projections, forward-looking analyses. Where's my money, son? Silence. He was staring at the screen like it might give him an answer. Brandon, I'm going to ask you one more time. Where is the $3.19 million from selling my house and cars? It's invested, like I said. In what? Emerging markets. Which markets? Asian, development, funds? Name one. Dad, why are you interrogating me? I'm trying to help. Name one fund where my money is invested. The Pacific Growth Initiative. I pulled out my phone and Googled Pacific Growth Initiative. No results. Brandon, that fund doesn't exist? It's new. Exclusive access. Through Wells Fargo Private Banking? Yes. I called Wells Fargo right there, put it on speaker. Wells Fargo Private Banking, this is Jennifer. How can I help you? Hi, Jennifer. This is Tom Anderson. I'm calling to check on my Pacific Growth Initiative investment. I'm sorry, sir. I'm not familiar with that fund. Can you provide your account number? Brandon grabbed my phone. Sorry, wrong number. He hung up. We stared at each other across the kitchen table, father and son. But I was looking at a stranger. Brandon, you spent it, didn't you? Dad, no. It's complicated. There are holding periods, liquidity restrictions dash. You gambled it away. I invested it. In what? Your lifestyle, your BMW lease, that engagement ring you can't afford? Dad, please. Give me 6 months. The markets are volatile right now, but I can get it back. Get it back from where? I made some aggressive positions. High risk, high reward. It's temporary. How much is left? It's not about what's left. It's about potential returns. How much, Brandon? Dad, how much? Maybe $200,000, but that's just cash on hand. The investments are... You lost $3 million in 2 weeks? I didn't lose it. It's tied up in complex financial instruments. I stood up from the table. My heart was pounding, but not from the medical condition, from pure rage. Brandon, you stole my house. You stole my cars. You forged legal documents, and then you gambled away everything I've worked for. Dad, let me explain. Get out. Dad, get out of my house before I call the police. He packed up his laptop. At the door, he turned back. Dad, I was trying to help. You don't understand modern finance. Brandon? Yeah? Your fiancé's family owns Mills Maritime, right? Yeah, why? Just curious. Get out. After he left, I sat in my kitchen and smiled for the first time in weeks. Brandon had just confessed to everything. Fraud, forgery, theft, gambling, all of it recorded. But more importantly, he'd revealed his greatest weakness. He thought I was just a stupid old man. He was about to learn otherwise. The next morning, I made the first of 3 phone calls that would change everything. Margaret, it's Tom. I need you to pull some files for me. Which files? Everything. Wilson Coastal Properties Incorporation papers, my real estate license, industry association memberships, and I want a complete portfolio summary of every property I own in the Outer Banks. Tom, that's going to be a lot of paperwork. Are you sure? I'm sure. And Margaret? I want hard copies. Old school documentation, the kind Brandon can't hack or delete. 2 hours later, Margaret arrived with 3 banker's boxes full of documents. Tom, I haven't seen some of these files in years. Your original business license from 1995. The deed to your first rental property. The incorporation papers when we founded Wilson Coastal Properties. She spread the documents across my dining room table. 29 years of building an empire. Look at this, she said, holding up a newspaper clipping from 2018. Local real estate mogul Tom Anderson named Entrepreneur of the Year. This was when you hit your first $30 million in total property value. I'd forgotten about that award. The ceremony at the Chamber of Commerce. Brandon had been there, but he'd spent the whole evening on his phone. Margaret, here's what I need you to understand. Brandon thinks I'm a retired construction worker who got lucky with some rental properties. How is that possible? You're literally famous in the industry. Because I never told him. I wanted him to make his own way, not coast on my reputation. Margaret picked up another document. Tom, you own 127 rental units, 43 commercial properties, 6 office buildings. You personally hold $34.2 million in real estate assets. I know. You're the largest private property owner in the Outer Banks. I know. You founded the real estate agency that your son used to steal from you. That's the beautiful part, Margaret. Brandon specifically chose Wilson Coastal Properties because he thought they gave him the best deal. He has no idea it's mine. My phone rang. Dr. Brooks. Tom, how are you feeling? Any chest pain? Shortness of breath? I'm fine, doctor. Actually, I need to ask you something. Those mental competency tests you ran while I was in the hospital? January 20th and January 24th. Why? What were my scores? Perfect cognitive function both times. 29 out of 30 on the initial test. 30 out of 30 on the follow-up. Why are you asking? I may need you to testify to that fact. Testify? Tom, what's going on? Someone forged power of attorney documents claiming I was mentally incompetent during my recovery. That's impossible. I have detailed medical records proving you were sharp throughout your entire stay. Who would dash? He paused. Tom, this is about Brandon, isn't it? I can't discuss the details yet, Doctor. But thank you for the documentation. After I hung up, Margaret was staring at me. Tom, you're not just going to embarrass Brandon at his engagement party. You're going to destroy him. I'm going to let him destroy himself. All I have to do is tell the truth. What truth? That I own Wilson Coastal Properties, that I have security footage of him forging documents, that I have recordings of him confessing to fraud. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Mr. Anderson, this is Elena Rodriguez, private investigator. Margaret Wilson hired me to do some background research. What kind of research? Financial forensics. I've been tracking your son's transactions since January 22nd. Mr. Anderson, you need to see this. What did you find? Brandon didn't just gamble away your money. He spent it on specific things. The engagement ring, $45,000. BMW lease payments, $18,000. High-end restaurants and nightclubs, $67,000. And get this, he bought a $25,000 Rolex the same day he sold your cars. Do you have receipts? Credit card statements, bank transfers, everything. Brandon's been living like a millionaire for 6 weeks. But Mr. Anderson, there's something else. What? Brandon's been telling people that you gave him the money. As an early inheritance, he's been bragging about it all over town. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heart pain, pure calculation. Elena, I want you to document everything. Every purchase, every conversation, every lie. And I want photographs. Already done. I'll send you the full report tonight. After I hung up, Margaret was holding up another document. My original business partnership agreement with her father, William Wilson. Tom, do you remember what your business motto was when we started? Quiet success speaks loudest. You've spent 30 years building power without showing it off. Brandon has no idea who he's dealing with. That's about to change. When? His engagement party is in 3 weeks. He specifically asked me to give a toast about how proud I am of his financial management. Margaret smiled. He's going to give you the perfect opening. I'm going to give him exactly what he asked for. A toast about his financial management. In front of 200 people, including his future in-laws, his co-workers, and every business leader in the Outer Banks. Tom, this is going to be nuclear. I looked at the boxes of documents. 3 decades of proof that I wasn't just Tom Anderson, retired construction worker. I was Tom Anderson, real estate mogul, founder of Wilson Coastal Properties, the man who owned half the Outer Banks. Margaret, Brandon wanted to play financial games with a stupid old man. And he's about to discover he's been playing chess with the Grandmaster. March 3rd, 2024. Ocean View Country Club, 7:30 p.m. I arrived at Brandon's engagement party wearing my best suit and carrying a manila envelope. The grand ballroom was elegant crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, 200 guests in formal wear. Brandon spotted me immediately and rushed over with his fiancée, Catherine Mills. Dad, you look great. Really recovered well. Catherine smiled politely. Mr. Anderson, Brandon's told me so much about you. I'm sorry we haven't met properly before now. Please call me Tom. And congratulations on your engagement. Thank you. Brandon says you've been so supportive during his transition into wealth management. Wealth management. That was a new one. Has he? Oh, yes. He told me how you've been teaching him about real estate investing, generational wealth building. It's so wonderful to see a father passing down financial wisdom. I looked at Brandon. He was beaming with pride. Brandon's been very creative with his financial strategies lately. Dad's being modest, Brandon said. He's taught me everything I know about maximizing asset value. We were interrupted by Richard Mills, Catherine's father, distinguished gentleman in his 60s, expensive suit, Rolex watch. Tom Anderson! I've been wanting to meet you. Richard Mills, Mills Maritime. We shook hands. His grip was firm, respectful. Brandon tells me you're in real estate, Richard continued. Small-scale stuff, but honest work. I admire that. Small-scale stuff. I glanced at Brandon, who was nodding enthusiastically. What exactly has Brandon told you about my business? Oh, you know, rental properties, some fix-and-flip projects. Keeping busy in retirement. Brandon says you've been very generous helping him understand the fundamentals. The fundamentals. I see. Richard leaned in closer. Between you and me, Tom, I'm impressed with Brandon's recent success. Not every young man can turn a small inheritance into serious wealth so quickly. Inheritance? The $3.2 million you gave him? Smart move, getting him started in high-yield investments while he's young. I felt my jaw tighten. Brandon had told his future father-in-law that I'd given him the money. Richard, I think there might be some confusion. Dad, Brandon interrupted quickly, Catherine's mom wants to meet you. Patricia Mills approached with 2 champagne glasses. Elegant woman, expensive jewelry, the kind of confidence that comes from generational wealth. Tom, how lovely to meet you. Catherine is absolutely smitten with Brandon, and we're so impressed with how well you've done for yourself. Thank you, Patricia. Brandon tells me you started with nothing and built a nice little portfolio of rental properties. Very inspiring. Self-made success stories always are. Little portfolio. I was starting to understand Brandon's narrative. He'd painted me as a minor landlord who'd gotten lucky, then generously shared my windfall with him. Mom, Catherine said, Brandon was just telling me about the beach house sale. Smart financial move, right, Dad Anderson? All eyes turned to me. Brandon's face was hopeful, expectant. The beach house sale was certainly educational. Brandon explained how you decided to liquidate non-performing assets, Patricia continued. Very sophisticated thinking. Most retirees just hold on to property for sentimental reasons. Sophisticated thinking, I repeated. And moving everything into emerging market funds, Richard added. Brilliant. Brandon clearly learned from the best. I looked around the circle, Brandon's fiancée, her wealthy parents, all of them believing that I was a simple old man who'd stumbled into some money and wisely turned it over to my brilliant son. Dad, Brandon said, raising his champagne glass, I know this is informal, but I wanted to thank you publicly for trusting me with your financial future. Other guests began gathering around us. Word was spreading that there was going to be an impromptu toast. Brandon's been so humble about his success, Catherine announced to the growing crowd, but his father just gave him over $3 million to manage, and he's already generated incredible returns. Murmurs of approval from the audience. Impressed nods. Someone started clapping. Speech? Speech! Someone called out. Brandon looked at me expectantly. Dad, would you like to say something about our partnership? The ballroom was quieting down, all 200 guests turning to look at us. Brandon's moment of triumph, his chance to be publicly praised by his father for his financial genius. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, I'd love to share something Brandon said to me just last week. I found the recording from our kitchen table conversation and pressed play. Brandon's voice filled the room through the ballroom sound system. Dad, you don't understand modern finance. Your old-school real estate approach is dead. Confused murmurs from the crowd. Brandon's face went pale. I stopped the recording. That was my son explaining why he sold my house and cars without permission while I was recovering from heart surgery. The ballroom went silent. You could hear ice clinking in glasses. Brandon, I continued, my voice calm and clear, would you like to tell everyone how you generated incredible returns on my money? Dad, please. Would you like to explain how you turned $3.19 million into $200,000 in 6 weeks? Gasps from the crowd. Catherine grabbed Brandon's arm. Brandon, what is he talking about? Or, I said, reaching into my manila envelope, would you prefer I show everyone the power of attorney documents you forged while I was unconscious in cardiac ICU? I held up the papers. Medical records, forged signatures, bank statements. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced to the stunned crowd, my son didn't manage my money. He stole it. He forged legal documents. He committed elder fraud against his dying father. Richard Mills stepped forward. Tom, there must be some misunderstanding. Richard, there's no misunderstanding. Brandon gambled away nearly $3 million of stolen money and then lied to your family about how he got it. Catherine was staring at Brandon like she'd never seen him before. Brandon, is this true? Catherine, I can explain. Is it true? Brandon looked around the room, 200 pairs of eyes staring at him, his future in-laws, his co-workers, business leaders from across the Outer Banks. I was trying to help Dad with his finances. He was sick, confused. Brandon, I said quietly, I scored 29 out of 30 on mental competency tests while I was in the hospital. Dr. Brooks is here tonight. Would you like him to verify that? Dr. Brooks stepped forward from the crowd. I can confirm that Mr. Anderson showed perfect cognitive function throughout his recovery. So, the power of attorney documents were forged, I continued. The sales were unauthorized, and the money was stolen. Brandon's world was collapsing in real time. Catherine had stepped away from him. Her parents were whispering urgently to each other. Guests were pulling out their phones. But here's my favorite part, I said, smiling for the first time all evening. Brandon specifically chose Wilson Coastal Properties to handle the sales of my stolen property. I pulled out the final document from my envelope. Business incorporation papers. Wilson Coastal Properties, founded in 1995 by Tom Anderson and William Wilson. Current owner, Tom Anderson. That's me. The ballroom erupted in shocked conversations. People were pointing at Brandon, then at me, trying to process what they were hearing. My son stole from me using my own real estate agency. He literally paid me commission to help him commit fraud against me. Brandon was backing toward the exit, but there was nowhere to go. Everyone was staring at him. Dad, please. Brandon, you wanted to give a toast about our financial partnership. So let's talk about what you've actually accomplished. I raised my champagne glass to the crowd, to my son Brandon, who taught me that blood doesn't excuse betrayal. The room was dead silent. No one drank. Brandon turned and ran toward the exit. Catherine stood frozen in the middle of the ballroom, engagement ring catching the light from the chandeliers. I hadn't raised my voice once. I hadn't threatened anyone. I'd simply told the truth, and 200 people had witnessed the complete destruction of my son's reputation. As Brandon fled toward the exit, Richard Mills grabbed my arm. Tom, I need to understand what just happened. Are you saying Brandon is a criminal? Richard, I'm saying Brandon committed elder fraud, forgery, and theft. But more importantly for you, he's been lying to your family for months. What do you mean? I pulled out Elena Rodriguez's investigation report. Brandon told you I gave him $3.2 million as an inheritance, correct? Yes. He actually stole it by forging power of attorney documents while I was unconscious from heart surgery. Then he gambled most of it away and used the rest to finance a lifestyle he couldn't afford. Catherine finally found her voice. Mr. Anderson, Brandon bought my engagement ring with stolen money, $45,000, charged to a credit card he opened using my forged signature. She stared down at the 2.5-carat diamond on her finger like it was on fire. Patricia Mills stepped forward. Tom, forgive me, but if Brandon stole millions from you, how are you not financially ruined? You mentioned rental properties, but... Patricia, I think it's time I properly introduced myself. I gestured to Margaret Wilson, who'd been waiting near the back of the ballroom with another set of documents. This is Margaret Wilson, my business partner and estate attorney. Margaret, would you please explain to everyone what Wilson Coastal Properties actually is? Margaret stepped into the center of the crowd. Wilson Coastal Properties is the largest independent real estate agency in the Outer Banks. We handle approximately 40% of all property transactions in the region. Murmurs of recognition from the crowd. Several people nodded. They'd clearly done business with Wilson Coastal Properties. Tom Anderson founded the company in 1995 with my father. He currently owns 100% of the business. But that's not all, I said, taking back control of the conversation. Margaret, tell them about my property portfolio. Tom personally owns 127 rental units, 43 commercial properties, and 6 office buildings across the Outer Banks. Total estimated value, $34.2 million. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Gasps, whispered conversations, several people pulling out phones to Google my name. Dr. Brooks spoke up from the crowd. Tom, I had no idea. You've been my patient for 5 years. You never mentioned... I don't like to show off, Sam, but sometimes circumstances require clarity. Richard Mills was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Tom, you're saying you're worth over $30 million? $47 million, actually. That includes liquid assets and business valuations. And Brandon thought he could steal from you? Brandon thought I was a retired construction worker with a small rental property portfolio. He had no idea who I actually am. I gestured to Elena Rodriguez, who stepped forward with a laptop. This is Elena Rodriguez, private investigator. Elena, would you please show everyone the security footage from January 22nd? Elena opened her laptop and projected the video onto the ballroom's large screen. There was Brandon, clear as day, in the Wilson Coastal Properties conference room, signing documents with my forged signature. This footage shows Brandon committing fraud in my own office, I explained. He chose Wilson Coastal Properties because he thought they gave him the best deal on selling my stolen property. He had no idea he was paying me commission to help him steal from me. The crowd was mesmerized. Several people were recording with their phones. But Elena found something even more interesting. Elena? Mr. Anderson, I've been tracking Brandon's spending since January 22nd. He spent $847,000 in 6 weeks. Elena clicked through a slideshow of receipts. The $45,000 engagement ring, the $25,000 Rolex, expensive restaurants, luxury hotels, designer clothes. Brandon has been living like a millionaire using his father's stolen money while telling everyone that it was a generous gift. Catherine was backing away from where Brandon had been standing, looking nauseated. Richard Mills turned to his wife. Patricia, we need to call our attorney. If Brandon defrauded Tom and he's engaged to our daughter... Richard, I interrupted, there's something else you should know. Brandon specifically mentioned that your family owns Mills Maritime. We do? What does that have to do with anything? I smiled. Margaret, what can you tell us about Mills Maritime's current financial situation? Margaret consulted her notes. Mills Maritime leases their primary office building and warehouse facility from Wilson Coastal Properties. They're currently 3 months behind on rent payments, owing $127,000. Richard's face went white. You're our landlord? I'm your landlord. And if your future son-in-law is a convicted felon, that might affect our business relationship. The implications hit Richard immediately. His daughter was engaged to a criminal who'd been living on stolen money. His family business owed money to the victim of that crime, and the victim happened to be one of the most powerful real estate moguls in the region. Tom, Richard said carefully, what do you want from us? I want the truth. Brandon has been lying to your family, using you to legitimize his stolen wealth. You're victims too. Catherine finally spoke up. Mr. Anderson, I need to ask you directly. Did Brandon steal from you? Yes. Did he forge legal documents? Yes. Did he lie to my family about how he got the money? Yes. She pulled the engagement ring off her finger and set it on the nearest table. Then this engagement is over. A ripple of approval went through the crowd. Several people started clapping. Patricia Mills approached me. Tom, I am so sorry. We had no idea. Brandon seemed like such a successful young man. Patricia, Brandon is successful. He successfully committed fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. But he made one crucial mistake. What's that? He underestimated his target. Richard Mills extended his hand. Tom, I want to apologize on behalf of our family, and I want to discuss our rent situation privately. We'll get current on our payments immediately. Richard, your family did nothing wrong. You were deceived by a very convincing liar. I turned to address the entire crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to be clear about something. This isn't about revenge. This is about justice. Brandon committed serious crimes and then used this engagement party to publicly celebrate his success at defrauding his dying father. The crowd was hanging on every word. But I want you all to know I didn't come here to humiliate Brandon. I came here to give him exactly what he asked for. I pulled out a copy of Brandon's invitation to the party. Right here, Brandon wrote, Dad, I'd love for you to give a toast about how proud you are of my financial management skills. I held up the invitation for everyone to see. So, tonight, I gave him exactly what he requested. A public toast about his financial management skills. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Even Patricia Mills was smiling. And now, I said, I'm going home to call the police. As I walked toward the exit, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. People were patting me on the back, shaking my hand, asking for business cards. For 30 years, I'd built power quietly. Tonight, I'd used it perfectly. Brandon thought he was stealing from a weak old man. Instead, he'd declared war on the most powerful real estate mogul in the Outer Banks, and he'd lost everything in front of 200 witnesses. I drove home in silence, my hands steady on the wheel for the first time in weeks. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my phone was already ringing. Tom, it's Detective Sarah Martinez with the Outer Banks Police Department. We just received a very interesting call from Dr. Brooks about potential elder fraud. Can you come to the station? I'll be there in 20 minutes. At the police station, Detective Martinez was waiting with a stack of forms and a digital recorder. Mr. Anderson, Dr. Brooks gave us a preliminary overview, but I need you to walk me through everything from the beginning. I spent 2 hours providing a detailed statement. The heart attack, the forged power of attorney documents, the unauthorized sales, the gambling losses. I handed over copies of everything: medical records, bank statements, security footage, recorded conversations. Mr. Anderson, this is one of the most thoroughly documented fraud cases I've ever seen. Usually, elder abuse victims don't have this kind of evidence. Detective, I've been building cases in business for 30 years. Documentation is everything. We'll need to arrest your son. Are you prepared for that? I'm prepared for justice. This will be a felony charge. Elder fraud, forgery, theft over $50,000. He's looking at serious prison time. How serious? 5 to 10 years, minimum. Possibly more if he can't pay restitution. I thought about Sarah's letter. Make him prove he understands the value of what you've built. Detective, what happens if he cooperates? If he admits to everything and agrees to pay full restitution? Depends on the judge. First offense, family situation, full cooperation, maybe 3 to 5 years with possibility of parole. And if he fights it, then we go to trial with all this evidence, and he gets the maximum sentence. 3 hours later, Brandon was arrested at his apartment. Elena Rodriguez had been watching the building since the engagement party, just in case he tried to run. The next morning, local news picked up the story. Investment banker arrested for defrauding father during heart surgery recovery. By noon, it was trending on social media. Brandon's bail was set at $500,000. He couldn't make it. His credit cards were maxed out, his checking account was overdrawn, and his employer had placed him on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. From his jail cell, Brandon called me. Dad, please, I need help. Brandon, you need a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. Dad, I made mistakes, but I was trying to help. Brandon, stop. Every conversation we have is recorded. Don't incriminate yourself further. Dad, please. I'll pay you back. Every penny. With what money? I'll figure it out. I'll get a second job, sell everything I own. Brandon, you own nothing. Your apartment is leased. Your BMW is leased. Your Rolex is purchased with stolen money, which means it's evidence in a criminal case. Silence on the line. Dad, what do you want me to do? I want you to tell the truth. Plead guilty, accept responsibility, and hope the judge shows mercy. And then what? Then you serve your time and start rebuilding your life with honor instead of lies. Dad, I can't go to prison. My career will be over. My reputation, Brandon, your career was over the moment you forged my signature. Your reputation was over the moment you gambled away stolen money. More silence. Dad, do you hate me? That question stopped me cold. My son was sitting in a jail cell, facing years in prison, and he wanted to know if I hated him. Brandon, I love you. I've always loved you. But love doesn't excuse what you did. I know. Do you understand that you committed elder abuse against your dying father? Yes. Do you understand that you stole the money I spent 30 years earning? Yes. Do you understand that you lied to Catherine's family to make yourself look successful? Yes, Dad. Yes. I understand everything. Then here's what's going to happen. You're going to plead guilty. You're going to accept full responsibility. You're going to apologize publicly. And you're going to serve whatever sentence the judge gives you. And after that, we'll see if you've learned anything about honor. 2 weeks later, Brandon appeared in court with a public defender. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread throughout the Outer Banks about the case. Judge Patricia Williamson reviewed the evidence. Mr. Anderson, you've committed serious crimes against a vulnerable family member during a medical crisis. This represents a profound breach of trust and a callous exploitation of your father's condition. Brandon stood silently as she continued. However, I note that you've accepted full responsibility, pleaded guilty to all charges, and expressed genuine remorse. Your father has also requested that I consider the possibility of rehabilitation, rather than purely punitive measures. She paused, consulting her notes. Brandon Anderson, I sentence you to 4 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 2 years. You will also pay for full restitution in the amount of $2,994,000. the difference between what you stole and what remains in recoverable assets. Brandon nodded. No tears, no protests. He'd finally understood the consequences of his actions. As he was led away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one more time. Dad? Yes? I'm sorry. For everything. I know, son. I know. The bailiff escorted him out of the courtroom. My son was going to prison, and I had put him there. But for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Sarah died. Peace. Justice had been served. Brandon would pay for his crimes. And maybe, just maybe, he would emerge from prison as the man I'd always hoped he could become. A man who understood that honor matters more than money. A man who earned respect instead of stealing it. A man worthy of the Anderson name. The news spread like wildfire through the Outer Banks business community. By the end of the week, investment banker defrauds dying father was the lead story in 3 regional newspapers. Brandon's employer, Coastal Community Bank, issued a public statement. We have terminated Mr. Brandon Anderson's employment effective immediately. We are conducting a full audit of all accounts he managed to ensure no client funds were misappropriated. The bank's investigation revealed that Brandon had been living far beyond his means for over a year, constantly borrowing against future commissions and taking cash advances on credit cards. His colleagues admitted they'd been suspicious of his sudden lifestyle changes, but hadn't questioned them. Catherine Mills made her own public statement. I am shocked and heartbroken to learn of Brandon Anderson's criminal behavior. I had no knowledge of his fraudulent activities and have ended our engagement permanently. My family and I extend our deepest sympathies to Mr. Tom Anderson. The engagement ring, Rolex watch, and other luxury items, purchased with stolen money, were seized as evidence and eventually auctioned to help pay restitution. But the most significant reverberations were in the real estate industry itself. James Peterson, president of the Outer Banks Real Estate Association, called me personally. Tom, I owe you an apology. I've been in this business for 20 years, and I had no idea you were the Tom Anderson who founded Wilson Coastal Properties. Most people don't, James. I prefer it that way. Well, the board would like to offer you a Lifetime Achievement Award at our annual conference. Your story has become legendary overnight. My story? Tom, every agent in the region is talking about how you handled this situation. You could have destroyed Brandon privately, but you chose justice over revenge. You could have ruined the Mills family for their association with him, but you protected them. You showed real class. Within a month, I was receiving calls from business leaders across North Carolina, real estate developers wanting partnerships, property management companies requesting consulting services, investment firms asking for advice. My quiet empire had suddenly become very public. Margaret Wilson was fielding interview requests from 3 different documentary producers who wanted to tell the story of the real estate mogul's ultimate revenge. Tom, 60 Minutes wants to interview you, so does Dateline, and Netflix is talking about optioning your story for a limited series. Margaret, I'm not interested in being famous. I just wanted justice for what Brandon did. I know. But Tom, you've become a symbol for something important. Adult children who exploit their elderly parents. The epidemic of elder fraud. You fought back and won. The legal system took notice too. District Attorney Michael Roberts used our case as the centerpiece of a new elder abuse prosecution initiative. Tom Anderson's case demonstrates that elder fraud can happen to anyone, regardless of wealth or education. But it also shows that victims can seek justice successfully if they document everything and refuse to be intimidated. 3 months after Brandon's sentencing, I received an unexpected visitor. Richard Mills knocked on my door, carrying a certified check. Tom, this is our outstanding rent balance plus a 6-month advance. Patricia and I want to make sure our business relationship starts fresh. Richard, that's not necessary. Your family were victims too. Maybe so, but we enabled Brandon's lies by not asking harder questions. We should have wondered how a $125,000 a year bank employee could afford to live like a millionaire. You trusted your daughter's fiancé? That's natural. Tom, can I ask you something? Why didn't you destroy us? Along with Brandon. You could have evicted our business, ruined our reputation, made us pay for our association with him. I thought about Sarah's letter again. Make him prove he understands the value of what you've built. Richard, Brandon's crimes weren't your fault. I believe in holding people accountable for their own actions, not punishing innocent parties. That's why everyone in town respects you now. You showed real leadership. 6 months later, I received a letter from Brandon in prison. Dad, I've been in counseling here, learning about addiction and financial crimes. I want you to know that I understand now what I took from you. It wasn't just money. It was your trust, your security, and your peace of mind during the worst health crisis of your life. I'm working in the prison library now, helping other inmates with basic financial literacy. It's the first honest work I've done in years. When I get out, I want to spend my life helping people understand the real value of money and the cost of betraying family trust. I know I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can prevent someone else from making the same mistakes. I love you, Dad, and I'm sorry it took prison for me to remember what honor means. I wrote back the same day. Son, honor isn't something you remember. It's something you choose every day for the rest of your life. Come home when you're ready to make that choice. For the first time since Sarah died, I felt hopeful about the future. Brandon was learning the difference between success and accomplishment, and maybe, just maybe, he would come home as the man I'd always hoped he could become. 1 year later, I sat in the same kitchen where Brandon had confessed to stealing my life's work. But everything was different now. Wilson Coastal Properties had expanded into 3 new markets. My property portfolio had grown to $52 million. The engagement party had inadvertently served as the best marketing event in company history. Everyone in the region knew who Tom Anderson was now. But more importantly, I'd learned something about myself. For 30 years, I'd hidden my success from my son, thinking I was teaching him humility. Instead, I'd enabled his delusions and arrogance. Margaret Wilson knocked on my door carrying updated legal documents. Tom, your new will is ready for signature. What's the new distribution? 50% to charity, 30% to a trust fund that Brandon can access only after demonstrating 5 consecutive years of honest employment and community service. 20% immediate inheritance to establish him in a legitimate business. And the safeguards? Triple redundancy. No single individual can access the principal without approval from 3 independent trustees. All major financial decisions require documented justification and independent legal review. I signed the documents with a steady hand. This wouldn't enable another Brandon to steal from a vulnerable parent. My phone rang. Detective Martinez. Mr. Anderson, I wanted to give you an update. Brandon's been selected for early parole consideration, model prisoner, helped develop a financial literacy program, earned his GED. The parole board is impressed. When would he be released? 6 months, if approved. He's requested permission to write you a letter about his intentions. I'd like to read it. That evening, Brandon's letter arrived by certified mail. Dad, I've been offered a job with a nonprofit organization that helps elderly people avoid financial scams. It pays $35,000 a year less than I used to spend on restaurants. But it's honest work, helping people protect themselves from criminals like I used to be. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness, but I want you to know that I finally understand what you tried to teach me. Success isn't about what you take from others. It's about what you give back. I'd like to come home and start over, not as your heir or your business partner, just as your son, trying to earn back your respect one honest day at a time. I read the letter 3 times, then walked out to my deck overlooking the Atlantic. The same view I'd had from my original beach house, the one Brandon sold while I was dying. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was hopeful. Tomorrow, I would write back to my son. I would tell him that love doesn't require perfection, but respect requires honor. I would tell him that our family's legacy wouldn't be measured by the money we accumulated, but by the principles we lived by. I would tell him to come home when he was ready to be the man Sarah had always believed he could become. And for the first time in 2 years, I believed that day might actually come. The Anderson family would survive this betrayal. We would emerge stronger, wiser, and more committed to the values that truly matter: honor, integrity, justice, and love that demands accountability. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Let me know in the comments. What would you have done in my situation? And remember, sometimes the quietest power speaks the loudest.